Good evening and welcome to election 2014. It is a little under 6 weeks until New Zealand voters head to the polls to decide which candidates will represent and which political parties will lead the country for the next 3 years. Between now and polling day, candidates and parties will be wooing you, the voter, with a range of policies and promises in an effort to secure your vote. The next 3 years could potentially be one of the most important periods in the future of the Canterbury region. The question is, how much do you know about your candidate from a personal and party perspective, and most importantly, how effective will they be if elected during this next most critical phase of the rebuild and recovery? Each week, on an electorate-by-electorate basis, I will be joined by candidates seeking to represent their respective electorates in Parliament for the next 3 years. We will examine some of the issues facing voters in these electorates and hear from the candidates on what they and their parties plan to do to manage these issues. The format is simple. I'll ask questions, they will answer. There may be interjections and not everyone will agree, and there may be some arguments. In any event, at the end, you, the voter, will have a better understanding of the major issues facing your region, how the parties will address them, and what this will mean for you. In other words, you will be better informed when you vote on the 20th of September. This week we're looking at the Waimakariri electorate, and I have pleasure in introducing today's panel. Labour List MP and Labour candidate Mr Clayton Cosgrove.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Conservative candidate Mr Benjamin Price.
Good evening.
Good evening. Green Party candidate Mr Reuben Hunt.
Kia ora.
Good evening. And National candidate Mr Matt Ducey.
Good evening.
Good evening. Now, to get this show on the road, I'd like you each to tell the viewers about yourself as a person at a personal level and your alignment with the party that you represent. Now, you each have 2 minutes, starting with Mr Cosgrove, and I'll ring the bell at 90 seconds.
Cheers. Well, good evening. For the last 15 years as a Member of Parliament, I've served the Waimakariri community. And I always say that you shouldn't judge politicians by what they say, but what their track record of delivery is. And whether that's delivering for people like Maureen Naylor, an elderly woman in Kaiapoi, who was in great pain for a long time, couldn't get onto the waiting list to see a specialist. She came to me, we worked it out, we got her on the urgent list, she got to see her specialist, and now she's had a hip replacement, she's feeling fantastic. Or whether it's like Johnny Naylor, a chap from Rangiora, who, like thousands of Cantabrians and people in Waimakariri, was banging his head against a brick wall, trying to get a breakthrough with EQC, trying to get the payment that he rightfully deserved and was entitled to, and couldn't get anywhere. And we worked that through and we delivered that payment for Johnny Naylor, and now he can get on with his life. Or whether it's actually delivering and backing the people in Waimakariri when they've called for an after-hours GP service and the government hasn't delivered. And if I'm elected, my government will deliver on that. Or whether it's fighting to save our police service, our youth education officers, our youth aid officers, who are now under threat of being withdrawn from our patch. The first and last duty of a local Member of Parliament, in my view, is to look after and protect the local people, to stand up, to fight for them and to deliver for them. I've enjoyed, and it's been a great honour, every day has been an honour, every hour has been a privilege to work for the folks in our local communities. And with your indulgence, and with your support, I hope to keep that delivery going and working for you.
Thank you very much, Clayton. Now, Benjamin, I'd like to hear from you for a couple of minutes on your situation, your alignment with the party and what you're going to offer the electorate.
Yep, absolutely. Good evening, I'm Benjamin Price. I'm a resident of Rangiora, and I'm standing for the Conservative Party because I believe it's the best opportunity for democracy and to ensure strong family values. There are 4 key things that I'm standing for. 1, we need to get tough on violent crime. That's what the country's asked for, and that's what needs to be delivered. And when people are in prison, they need to be working. 2, we need one law for all New Zealanders, where we're all equal and we have equal rights and responsibilities under the law. 3, we need to sort out our tax system. It needs to be simpler. We'll offer $20,000 of tax-free income and a flat tax after that. and this will help put money back into the pockets of those who need it the most. And finally, we need binding referenda. It's the core of democracy. So I'm asking you to stand with me and vote Conservative. Thank you.
Ruben?
Kia ora. I'm Ruben Hunt, the Waimakariri Green Party candidate. In this election, I'm personally asking you to vote for the Green Party. A little bit about myself. I'm a computer professional for 30 years, husband for 15 years and a father for 14. I work at the University of Canterbury as an IT project manager, and I live in Oxford, where we plan to build a zero-energy house and create a productive permaculture garden. Personally, I'm very proud to stand for the Green Party, the fastest growing party in New Zealand. We have 60 outstanding MP candidates. We have over 50 comprehensive policies. We've been the main voice of opposition at times, e.g. no asset sales, mining in national parks, and we've influenced the government, insulation in homes, cycleways. We have a stable leadership in place, and I firmly believe that we are ready to govern. A bigger green presence in government will mean, amongst other things, improved transport solutions, clean rivers and beaches, and a fairer society. And I hope to cover these more later on tonight. In summary, I believe the Green Party have innovative, fresh, smart and fresh policies that will benefit you and Waimakariri. It is really time for change. Party vote Green 2014. Thank you.
Now, Matt, if I can hear from you.
Sure. I'm a proud, born and bred Cantabrian. I grew up here. I had a great upbringing here, and now it's my time to give something back. I was educated at St Bede's College. I went on to study counselling psychology and also graduated with an honours degree in social policy. In London, I graduated with a Masters in Healthcare Management, and from Birkbeck College, a Masters in Global Politics. I have a career of over 15 years in healthcare. At the front line of mental health services I've worked, and also in the management of healthcare services. I've listened to people, supported them, helped them, advocated and represented them. For me, I went into healthcare to make a difference. Politics is a way of continuing to make that difference. I was Assistant Director of the internationally renowned Tavistock Clinic in London and headhunted by Canterbury District Health Board to come back and work at Christchurch Public Hospital. I'm supported by my wife, Victoria, and my daughter, Emily. Having a young family, I want to see families and communities at the heart of growth and development, not only here in the Waimakariri, but the whole of New Zealand. For me, it's all about family. I want to see mums and dads get better jobs and better incomes. I want to see their kids reach their achievements through great education. I want grandparents to have great healthcare and security in their retirement. And I want families to grow up in safer communities. I will be your strong voice inside a John Key national government. Thank you.
It's time for us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be talking about a major issue in the North Canterbury area, congestion. Welcome back to Election 2014, where we are distilling the important issues for the Canterbury region in the lead up to the coming general election. Before the break, we heard from the individuals so we could get to know them a little as a person and understand what they're standing for. Now let's look at the electorate issues and understand what the parties are going to do to solve these issues. I'd like to talk about congestion. Now, 65% of working age adults travel to Christchurch daily. ECAN have said no to rail in the short term. The queues are getting longer and travel times are ballooning as well. So what are we going to do about this? And I'm going to start and possibly talk to Matt on this one and say, what do you think? And what's the policy on the congestion issue?
Well, I think, Tim, in the short term and in the long term, we need solutions. And as the MP for Waimakariri, I'll be working towards those short term and long term solutions. As you identified, we've got 50,000 cars going across the bridge back and forth every day. Around 65% of working age adults commuting into Christchurch City. It's interesting, during that peak time, we've got about 10,000 cars going across, with only about 84% of them having one person in them. So that's 9,000 free seats going across the river every day. So that identifies one key thing. We need to support carpooling. We need to educate drivers to carpool and to reduce the congestion. I think the ECAN report was very good because it helped us understand the data of traffic going in. And what it identified is actually there's 3 types of destinations. People going into Christchurch City, people going into the Russley Airport area, and people going into Hornby. So we need to look at express bus services that will leave separately from Rangiora and Kaiapoi and take them into those 3 destination points. Long-term solutions, we have $300 million worth of infrastructure projects. Roads of national significance. We have the Western Belfast Bypass that starts in 6 months' time, and a year later we have the Northern Arterial. So with those roading projects, they'll free up the road. So in the short term, we very much need to look, if capacity is about 3,000 cars on the road and congestion is 3,500 currently, we need to think, how do we take those 500 cars off the road? And for me, it's carpooling, it's express busways, but also providing priority lanes for them to get in as well. We need to provide reliable travel times.
Okay. Ruben, thoughts on this?
Yep. First of all, I'd like to look at the cause. First, we've got the earthquakes, which have resulted in about 9 years' growth of traffic in about 3. Secondly, though, I believe it's been exacerbated by the current government's underfunding of local, regional roading and public transport in favour of the 7 uneconomic highway projects that are underway, and 6 of which are in the North Island. And they're spending over $1 billion a year on that, which has left the local councils in a bit of a difficult position, taking on more debt, trying to deal with these problems. Anyway, I'm very excited to announce that today in Christchurch we actually had our local policy announcements which covered transport. And what we announced for Waimakariri and also Selwyn, which is in a similar situation, are plans for a commuter rail service between here and Christchurch.
So that's been ruled out already, but you're looking at another option?
This would be an immediate, quick win solution, costing about $10 million a year for the next 5 years.
So can I ask the question, you deliver people and what do we do with them once we get them
There'll
in?
be feeder buses at the other end to take them to their destinations, because we do appreciate that not everyone works at the airport or Addington, so we have that in mind too. And we also have a wider scheme which is to look at transport across the region, and we're going to spend $250 million over 5 years and implement a rapid transit solution for Christchurch and the surrounding districts. So that was all announced today.
Good. Benjamin?
Well, I certainly have to say that there obviously are congestion issues. So I drive in the traffic every morning to get into work into town. I would say, though, that the traffic congestion is nowhere near as bad at the moment as it was a year ago. There were plenty of times where I was driving into town and it was taking nearly 2 hours to get to work.
So how long is it taking now?
Between 45 minutes and an hour.
And are people, is that okay with the...
Well, it's certainly, I'm not saying that there's not still a congestion issue, but I have to say that the congestion has significantly reduced. So that's good. Obviously, in terms of us as a smaller party, our job would be to make sure to keep the government's feet to the fire, to make sure that they carry on and get it done in a very timely and pragmatic manner.
Sure. Yeah. Clayton?
We're going to announce our full transport package in a couple of weeks, but I'll give you some personal views. Everybody knows when you're travelling to and from Rangiora into town that we're not only burning fuel. See, people look at cost. So time is a cost, fuel is a cost, but also if you're a plumber, if you're in a service industry, if you're a courier, or a truck driver, that may be 2 or 3 deliveries you can't make that day, 2 or 3 jobs you can't do. So there's a huge economic cost. I think we need an integrated transport strategy. I'm interested in some of the comments the Green colleagues made. We've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because of a thing called an earthquake, where we've basically got a blank canvas. And we should be looking at the next century. We need a big vision here. It's not just about buses or one particular or carpooling or those things. They are positive things. It's about integrating all those solutions. I think the ECAN report was wrong. I reject it. I think they did a report 10 years ago. They said we didn't have enough population in North Canterbury. Well, that question has been answered absolutely. We have a massive population both in North Canterbury and the south end of Christchurch. I would favour a rail solution, integrated with a decent express bus service, but also, as other colleagues have said, looking at carpooling, but putting all those pieces together. At the moment, the problem you've got is the government's just looking like pieces on a chessboard. Buses, roading, nothing is integrated. There's some wonderful technologies out there. I had a constituent who came to me and said, look, in Adelaide, they have buses which can both go on rail and on road, right? They have the technology to do that. They have an integrated transport system. And the people that I talk to in Rangiora, Oxford doesn't even have, for instance, a bus service linking it from Oxford to Rangiora. People basically say, look, I'd pay a little bit extra if I could have a reliable and efficient service that would get me to work on time, because the boss will kick my backside and I won't use it again if I'm late. But it's got to be cheaper than using my car, and it's got to be efficient. And if I could whiz down the track, because we don't have a huge amount of rolling stock going over that track, I'd pay a little bit extra for that to get to work. So I think we've got to have a big vision, a 21st century vision, not just sort of piecemeal, a bus exchange here, a squabble over a bus stop here in Papanui, and the endless wrangles we have over roading. We've got a chance here to put a massive plan in place and make Canterbury, not just Christchurch, through an integrated transport system, one of the world-class infrastructure cities in the world. And we're only going to get one chance to do it, and if we get it wrong, we get it wrong permanently.
So with that there, we've obviously got significant growth coming up. I mean, there's new subdivisions, the north has been growing. I mean, are we going to be able to continue with the growth and have people, their travel times not blowing out to a point where travel restricts people from moving? I mean, you know, this is open for...
Well, it depends. We know what's coming down the pipe. We know that people, at the present time, you've got the donut effect in Christchurch, you've got massive explosion of population in the southern end, in Rolleston and so on, and in North Canterbury. So we know where the population's settling. We're not sure what's going to happen in terms of population moving back into the city, but you know where they're settling now. So the question is, if you know where the population's projected and where it's going to be, then plan your infrastructure long term around that. Don't just look at today.
Under your Kiwi Build policy, we don't know where subdivisions are going. Your Kiwi Build policy takes away local consenting process. And I don't think people in Waimakariri want to be told by central government that they're going to have 20, 30,000 new houses in. And I think that's wrong. And also, what's going to happen when the Greens pull out $12 billion under your coalition out of the roads of national significance? Are you stopping the Western Belfast bypass and the Northern Arterial? Where are you taking, under your coalition, $12 billion out of?
Can I finish what I was saying before I was... Thanks very much. Thanks very much. I don't quite understand Matt's point, given that we have a housing crisis. We have a massive amount of pressure on rentals, and we're just simply saying we're going to build 10,000 houses a year over 10 years nationwide. The only way you fix a housing crisis, last time I checked, was to build houses. My point is this: if you know where the population is going and you plan for the future and you build your infrastructure around that, you can have a world-class city. We need a big vision.
Hear you on that. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to be talking about economic growth, the environment, and the natural tension that this will create. Welcome back to election 2014, where we're distilling the important issues facing the Canterbury region in the lead up to the coming general election. Before the break, we heard about congestion, major issue facing those living in the electorate. I would now like to talk about the economic growth and the environment and the natural tension this creates. Rangiora and Kaiapoi are rural support towns whose economies are largely underpinned by the rural economies. Some will say that continued growth in the rural sector may place pressure on the environment, a natural conflict in itself. I'm keen to understand more about this from the individuals and the parties and understand, where the policies sit and what's on offer. Ruben, I'm going to open this one with you.
Thank you. So John Key, he says it's a trade-off. He says we must balance more GDP growth against more environmental decline. It is not. With 21st century technology, you can have both. And this was endorsed by the Royal Society's findings earlier this year when they said that we can protect the environment and also have a strong economy. Also, John Key's pollution approach is flawed. If you pursue that, you trash our brand, the clean, green New Zealand, 100% pure. That's worth 13 billion to New Zealand. And maintaining that brand is good for our tourism and all our exports. So the Green Party, we would build on that brand and we would focus on value-added exports. At the moment, we export logs and other commodities overseas and we get about 10% of the value of them. What we would do is convert them into furniture or building timber and get 90% of the value, plus the jobs that go with it. We'd also focus on high-tech, smart green technologies. We already punch above our weight in Canterbury. You've got Tate, Jade, Windflow, just to name a few.
Can I stop you there for a minute though? Value add requires the labour costs and manufacturing costs to be at a level comparable with those overseas. How is that going to be managed? Because if you're value adding, you've got to have the labour, and that creates an issue for us here.
Well, first of all, we'd capitalise on our brand, which we wouldn't trash, so we'd keep that, and so we'd be able to command a higher price on our products, because already Kiwi products are seen as superior to those from other countries, so we'd capitalise on that. Yep.
But the products are coming in made up because the labour's cheaper, so if you're looking at a value add, I mean, obviously we've got dairy, we've got farming, those are obviously revenue coming from the land. We expand those, it has an environmental issue and an impact potentially, so you're saying value add and it is a way of increasing the economy but minimising the footprint.
Yeah, the green tech industry solution, that would certainly minimise the footprint and take the pressure off the land. The farmers are under such pressure to deliver, they're debt-ridden, and we would try and support them by taking that pressure off them and focusing on these value-added opportunities, tech industries, niche markets, where New Zealand, we do punch above our weight.
Okay, Matt?
Well, National's building a competitive and productive economy as well as a sustainable environment. And as the MP for Waimakariri, I'll be working so we didn't put either of them at risk. National has a business growth agenda. It's about improving skills and workforce capacity, optimising natural resources, building our export market, doubling that over the next couple of decades. We're looking at building innovation and infrastructure, ultra-fast broadband rollout, roading, irrigation, and opening up capital markets as well. But we're also doing a lot on the environmental front. And what we're doing is looking at water quality, the first government to put in water quality standards. We've also put in nutrient leaching zones, because what we've identified is that with nutrient leaching, each zone has got a different one. We've already seen in Balmoral Forest Farm, Ngaitahu, having to review their stock numbers because of nutrient leaching zoning. So things are working, and working practices for farmers. They're now fencing off waterways, so it's learning as we go. But what we've also got to think is there's an opportunity here. So for nutrient leaching, if we can get the technology right and we can research and develop, and if it works here, we can sell that overseas and be world leaders.
So Ruben, you had comment?
Yeah, I just have to pick Matt up on one point, and that is the quality standard for rivers, which he mentioned. They're so low that the Yangtze River in China would meet those standards. I mean, it's like saying, yeah, it's just...
Can I make a point on river standard? We announced a policy where we said our aim, big vision, is to have all rivers swimmable, and so you can take food from them, so you can harvest food from them. Now, we were criticised for that by the National Party and by the government. Their view seems to be, we'll get sick on half the rivers where the kids go for a swim. If you talk about value add, let me give you an example. The emissions trading scheme that we propose and the whole issue of emissions climate change, right? We have a developing country profile. Our biggest emitters, and this is not a criticism of the farmers, this is a fact, and they will agree, are emissions from stock, right? Mm-hmm. Now, our farmers are the most efficient in the world. They are the best in the world, in my view. They've always stayed ahead of the curve. So here's a value add, though. If we get the research done, and it's being done, to try and get those emissions down, to crack that problem, we will do it before anybody else in the world, and our farmers will be, as they are now, 3 and 4 steps ahead. So I don't see, of their competitors, I don't see a dichotomy or some sort of opposition between environmental sustainability, because our farmers actually, let's get this straight, they rely on the land. Right? Mm-hmm. Just like the odd politician, there's 1 or 2 bad ones, right? There's 1 or 2 bad farmers, there's 1 or 2 bad individuals around. But they rely on the land and they're custodians of the land, and it's not in their interests to mess up that land. They need help, they need support, they need research, but they also got to do their bit, right, as the biggest emitter.
So you're talking to an electorate here which is going to be largely dependent upon the revenues derived from the rural economy.
Isn't it? Has
So
been
are
for
there
many-
any surprises up here for, I mean, what will your policies be?
Well, as I said, we favour an ETS.
Yep.
We say we have to keep ahead of the curve.
Yep.
The government pulled out of the second range of Kyoto. The government's position is until everybody else gets their act together, we're not going to do anything. The problem with that is that puts the farmer right behind the eight ball. We wait for China to crack the nut, or the Japanese to do the research, or the Americans to nut it. Our farmers become less efficient and less competitive, and we're behind the eight ball. I say, let's get ahead of the curve.
We're dependent, though, upon the revenues
But that gives
primarily
you
from...
That's right. But think of this. In Europe, people are buying products and they are looking at the environmental sustainability factors when they buy a pound of butter, when they buy sheep meat, when they buy beef. We have a great reputation for that. If we can then get ahead of that and crack that nut of emissions, get our emissions down, that becomes a competitive advantage, right? A competitive advantage so that our farmers are ahead of the game and more competitive and have a greater response to market, therefore they're earning more. There's no sort of opposition in this. It's find the nut, find the competitive advantage and leverage it.
Benjamin?
I don't think the farmers want it, to be honest. And what this all comes down to in terms of democracy is we need to be listening to the people.
So you're saying the farmers don't want it, but
I'm not
obviously we're
convinced
going to have
they
some
do,
control
and
and standards around the way that we treat the environment, though?
Yeah, absolutely. But the catch we've got now in New Zealand is we've sort of got this crazy situation where if you go into a field and dig a hole and plant a tree, you're an environmentalist. If you go into the same field, dig a bigger hole, remove the gold, fill the hole back in and plant a native forest, you're an eco-terrorist. It's got out of hand. It's crazy.
Hear you on that. But when it comes back to the way that this electorate is dependent upon that rural dollar,
Yep.
I guess policies from your party around protection of that, are the voters going to have any concerns? Is the revenue going to be put at risk?
No, I don't believe so. If anything, putting the extra pressure on the farmers is just raising extra costs for them.
But what we have to do, Tim, is challenge the misinformation coming out from the far left. And Ruben will know from his Green Party in the UK, when they came up with the idea that New Zealand meat produce had a bigger carbon footprint by sending it over by plane than the local English produce. So some bright sparks from Lincoln University got together and they tested it, and they actually worked out with the intensification of farming in the UK, they still had a bigger footprint than us growing it and sending it over. And that was at the risk of the primary industries. And we need to support that, because when farming's doing well, the Waimac's doing well. When farming's doing well, the whole of New Zealand does well.
It's time for us to take a short break. Don't go away. And when we return, we'll be talking about post-earthquake recovery. Welcome back to Election 2014. Before the break, we heard on the natural conflict between the economic growth and the environment. I would now like to talk about post-earthquake recovery. There would be no debate at this time in this place in Christchurch without that. Now, North Canterbury was hit hard in the September earthquake. North Canterbury has seen some significant progress since the earthquakes. New $7 million health facility, high streets in Rangiora and Kaiapoi reopening with farmers and Blackwells committing to anchor tenancies in there. We've also got the affordable housing program, which is underway. We've also seen there's a lot of subdivision and new development coming on within the subdivisions. I think good progress has been made. I just wonder what the views of the parties are, and do we agree? What will you be proposing, and how will things work if you're elected?
Well, I think you're right. I think there's been some very good progress, but I'd have to say we had one big advantage in Waimak. Jerry Brownlee forgot about us and left us alone. And you've got a council led by David Ayres and a superb group of councillors who did what the then City Council didn't do, and that is they engaged with people. And I was at a meeting at the Kaiapoi Golf Club a couple of weeks ago where the council put out the development options. They're fabulous. There's a boat shed type building that's proposed for where the Bridge pub was in Kaiapoi for the viewers who aren't there. There's some fabulous developments. But the difficulty is this, that as the CBD, both in Kaiapoi and Rangiora, get back on their feet, there are still, and this is right through Canterbury, there are still 10,000 outstanding major insurance and EQC claims. 2.5 people on average per house, that's 25,000 people, that's the size of Timaru. And we proposed to Jerry Brownlee 4 years ago that he should hold the insurance companies to account. that he should hold EQC and now the state-aid insurer Southern Response to account and ensure that they meet their obligations, because 4 years on, and people say you're whinging. No, 4 years on, there's 10,000, 25,000 people who are still waiting to get on with their lives, to get their insurance claim. It shouldn't take, for instance, Paulette Barr, the lady who was on the front page of the Christchurch Press confronting the Prime Minister last week in tears, begging after 4 years for him to do something about her claim, when the Prime Minister told everybody in the Waimakariri and Canterbury, quote, no one will be worse off. It shouldn't take Paulette Barr to beg the Prime Minister, and suddenly, hey presto, within a couple of days, suddenly things happen for that lady. You know, so I think there's some magnificent things happening, but if you can't get your insurance payment, and you can't get your EQC payment, and the house prices go up and land prices go up, and you can't move, you're still living the nightmare. And that's one of the big things we have to do. We're proposing an earthquake court. We'll licence every district court judge, every QC, every retired lawyer. The industry will pay for that. The industry will pay, and there will be penalties if they delay, and you'll put your file in, you'll get a lawyer supplied by the state that again the industry will pay for. And at that moment there's a power shift. Because if the industry knows that the Paulette Barrs of this world and the Johnny Saunders of this world actually have the ability to take them to court and the resources backed by the state that the companies themselves will pay for, then you watch them settle.
So the question is, intervention on private sector, insurance is private sector, international companies.
I'm the Commerce and EQC spokesperson. Part of our policy is to do a total review of not just EQC. Mr Brownlee's had a review of EQC since 2012. It's never seen the light of day. A total review of EQC and the private sector, reviewing all the regulations and legislation, because everybody in Canterbury knows that they paid their insurance premiums all their life. None of us thought we'd ever have to claim on them, apart from Johnny throwing a cricket ball through the window. The big one hits, and 4 years later, 10,000 claims unsettled. That's not good enough.
The question is, though, intervention on the private sector. We need the insurance industry to be supporting New Zealand.
We do, but here's the point. This is what Kevin Rudd did. Kevin Rudd, and I gave this to Jerry Brownlee 4 years ago. I said to Jerry, I'll back you. I'll give you a letter signed in blood, if you like, and I will commit my party to supporting you if you go and rattle the sabre as Kevin Rudd did. Kevin Rudd in Australia went to the insurance people and said, right, after the Queensland floods, if you guys don't start paying your way, don't start writing out cheques and settling claims, I'll go into the Parliament and sort you out. I asked Jerry to get heavy with the insurance companies. He wouldn't do it, and he simply sits there and praises them, and 4 years later, 25,000 people, 10,000 claims still unsettled, and the price of land and housing, as you know, Tim, just keeps going up.
Benjamin?
Well, look, no doubt there are issues, but it would be deluded to think that if we had a Labor government in charge it would be any different. It's, you know...
It would, because we'd intervene. We'd move on the insurance companies.
Look, the reality is that if Labor was in charge, we wouldn't be getting the Coast Guard building rebuilt at the moment.
Why is that?
What's Labor done for the Coast Guard?
Well, Labor hasn't been in power. Why wouldn't we rebuild the Coast Guard? Where do you get that from? Of course we'd rebuild the Coast Guard.
Every time I've been down speaking to the guys at the Coast Guard, all they ever tell me is how little Labor's ever done for them.
We're not in government, mate. We haven't been in government for 6 years.
But what my point is that it's not going to be any different, is it?
So
it's the same process over and over.
And we wouldn't sit there as a passive observer.
You claim you'd intervene.
As a passive observer sitting there and just letting people rot, and the Maureen, the Johnny Saunders of this world, and the Pauline Barrs of this world, who have to simply beg the Prime Minister, put it on the front page of the press, and then they get some action. It shouldn't be that way.
It's always the way. It doesn't matter who's the government.
Oh, well, mate, come down, I'll show you the hundreds of earthquake files that I've got that we've been working on for 4 years, getting people's claims done, because Mr Brownlee and his government say the insurance guys are doing a wonderful job. If you believe that, I'm sorry, you're out to lunch.
Reuben?
Yeah. Farmers has only just been started to be demolished after like 3 to 4 years. The new hospital announcement only came out in the past couple of months. Anyone would think it was election year.
And they announced it 2 weeks before the last election.
Oh, okay, right, but it's actually now kicking off now.
That's right.
The bottom line is, I believe that the current government has got its priorities wrong for Christchurch and the region by focusing on these anchor projects, which is sucking up huge amounts of money. And the Green Party today announced that they would be putting them on hold, so we could actually focus on getting people back into warm, dry houses, which is ultimately what it's all about. And in Kaipoi, you can go around some of the streets on the east side there, and they're totally munted still.
But internationally, though, it's been proved that you've got to have happy in the workplace, happy in the home and happy on the roads to get between the two.
But you know how you stay happy? If you're not in a house and you're still treating through liquefaction and there's still leaking coming through the floorboards and you're still getting flooded out in Flockton Basin over the other side of Christchurch, and you sit there every day trying to get your insurance premium, and the house and land you wanted to buy was maybe $355,000 and now it's $400,000 6 months later, and you're not going to get any more from your insurers. That's a recipe for tears.
Matt?
Well, I mean, it's interesting Clayton's made the assertion that Minister Brownlee has forgotten about the Waimakariri.
leave them alone to get on with it, which is great, actually.
Clayton seems to have forgotten himself that it was Minister Brownlee who used the SARA Act to free up land within Kaiapoi from the airport noise contours, so housing could go ahead. So maybe he hasn't forgot as much, but Clayton all of a sudden seems to remember. I think the question is here now, really, which government do we trust who will take the next phase of the recovery forward? Is it a stable and strong John Key national government that's put the earthquake recovery as one of its top 4 priorities, has the earthquake recovery minister at number 3, and has committed $15 billion towards the $40 billion cost of recovery? Or is it a far-left coalition made up of Russell Norman, David Cunliffe and Laila Hari? I mean, I'll let the viewers decide who they trust. But for me, coming from a background in healthcare, international research shows years 3 to 5 the most important for psychological recovery and social recovery. And we need to be thinking about that, and that's paramount. People's thoughts will move away from physical buildings, and it will be more about how they're feeling. And I suppose coming from a background of mental health, supporting people, helping people, representing and advocating for them, if I was the MP for Waimakariri, that's what I'll be focusing on. But I think what we've got to remember is post the earthquakes, there was talk of, the city would have to move, house prices were going to crash, unemployment was going to go up, other social problems, and look what we've got now. We've got more bars and restaurants than we had pre-earthquake. There's been a lot of stability thanks to the government's certainty, security, and I think we need to acknowledge that. But moving forward, we've already seen in the Waimak, we've got affordable housing. We've got consultation out on the red zone. We've got the high streets who are coming back to life, and we've got a retail boom as well. So I think, someone who grew up in Canterbury, really wants to give back. We've got an opportunity now to make this not a city for us now, but also a city for my child and my grandchildren.
I've got to ask you a question though. 2 terms, and Nationals had 2 terms, and you've been one post the earthquake. How much of what's happened in North Canterbury can actually be put down to the national government, or how much is actually through the district council?
Well, I think, responding to an earthquake and the recovery is complex. And not only does it take central government and local government, but also private business leaders as well as community groups as well. So pretty much we're all in this together, and we need to be working. And I was out door knocking yesterday, and I was door knocking, and the lady just said to me, can you guys just stop bickering, or bang your heads together? Why don't you work collaboratively and get this recovery going? And I think that's what we need to do. There's some things I don't like, hearing about people still waiting for their house to be repaired.
It's happening.
I've got immediate family that have just gone through that years later. I don't like that, but I can understand through the size and complexity how it's happening. And that's why I'm standing up, because I want to advocate individually for those people, represent and advocate for them, and move them forward.
Can I say this? Matt talks about nice bars and restaurants going up. That's great, and they are. But many of the people in Kaiapoi and in Rangiora who can't get their house, that's not their priority. If their kids, you go and ask any principal in Waimak, if you were sort of age 3 or 4 years on as a child, you're now 7. All you've known of mum and dad are still fighting to get their house sorted, and not just repaired, to get a new house. All that kiddie's known is that sort of stress. And that's why we're getting behaviours in schools that are forming now. You go and ask teachers about this, but these people, Matt, don't have an opportunity to go to bars and restaurants. If you can't get a roof over your head and you are fretting and worrying 4 years on because Mr Brownlee's EQC won't give you the information, or EQC, I'll show you some of my files, Matt, if you want to see what your government department's done, or Southern Response, who is also a government department, can't communicate with EQC, another government department. department, or the insurers, the private insurers, won't talk to EQC, and they talk about bickering. It's not the politicians. What's needed is Mr Brownlee needs to give his own department and the insurance industry a good boot up the backside so that they actually deliver. If these people can't, it's as fundamental as this. If you can't get your insurance payment and your EQC payment, you are treating liquefaction. You can't move on with your life.
Question for you though, if you were to be undertaking a review of EQC,
Yes.
What is the risk that we get into a whole different set of treating liquefaction because we're actually reviewing what's gone wrong to try and work out what's going to be
Mr
done?
Brownlee's had a review of EQC. He said this in Parliament since 2012. Reviews don't stop anything. Reviews, this is now flowing over to New Zealand. Insurance premiums are going up because the old insurers are gouging. They're making a lot of money out of this earthquake. We have to, one, learn from this because it may well happen in another part of New Zealand or again, but it can't get a lot worse for the Pauline Bartletts of this world, Pauline Barr, I should say, of this world, who again had to sort of beg the Prime Minister for help. You have to sort of get things in the media before Mr Brownlee will actually tell his department, you know, to get off their backside and actually give people information and settle their claims. This is 4 years, not 4 months, and those excuses from EQC and the insurance industry were okay for 12 months, but not 4 years on.
Okay, we've got to go to a break. Don't go away. When we come back, we're going to be looking to talk to the candidates about what they will do if they're elected in the 3 years and the key issues that will keep them awake at night. Before the break, we were talking about we were talking about congestion, we were talking about economic recovery, and we've just recently been talking about earthquake recovery. We're now going to ask in a wrap-up, we're going to ask each of the candidates what keeps them awake at night, what are the key issues if they're elected in for this next term, and the last thing is, why should the voters vote for you? Clayton, can I start with you?
Well, what keeps me awake at night is the hundreds of files in my office dealing with earthquake cases and earthquake victims. As I said at the start, people like Johnny Saunders, and his was only actually a relatively minor case. Some of the people who I deal with have been battling for 4 years. Their incomes are in jeopardy and they're getting no further ahead. They're getting no support from EQC, no answers from EQC and no answers from their insurer. What would I do about it? I'd go in there and give a clear message to the insurers that they're going to be reviewed and that if they don't start reacting and paying people out, and EQC and Southern Response, then we'll move on them. What are the issues that I would be working on? Well, I want to ensure, as the people of Waimak have asked for the last 6 years, there is an after-hours GP service. The government announced, a health hub 2 weeks before the last election, but no after-hours GP service. They didn't even bother funding it out of new money with the DHB, so the DHB is robbing Peter to pay Paul. We'll have an after-hours GP service if I'm elected with the government, and we will use new money, $7 million, so that the DHB doesn't have to rob Peter and pay Paul. I'll be working to make sure our youth aid officers, our youth education police officers don't disappear. And I'll be working with people like Maureen Naylor and others who have health difficulties, who have ACC difficulties, to make sure they get a fair go. All politics is local, that's an old saying. And what that means is you must make a decision as to who you trust, as to who you believe is best equipped and committed and trustworthy to deliver for you and fight for you as a local community. I've spent 15 years supporting and fighting for the people and the needs of Waimakariri, and with your support and your indulgence, it has been a great honour, and I want to continue to deliver, and I have a track record of delivery for the people of Waimak. Thank you.
Benjamin?
What keeps me awake is the fact that we live in a country where both Labor and national-led governments continue to blatantly and arrogantly ignore the will of the people. It's not good enough. If I'm elected, my role is to support strong, stable government that is also accountable. We need to do the 4 things as I said earlier. Get tough on law and order. We need prisoners working. We don't need to have a situation where elderly ladies are being attacked in their homes because we've let people out early on parole. We need to have one law for all of New Zealand so we have equality and fairness for everyone, that no one is treated like a second-class citizen. We need to sort out our tax system so those who really are in need actually have some money in their back pockets and we're not playing an endless game of money go round. And finally, our bottom line is that we need to have binding referenda. So I'm asking for your support in this election. I'm asking you to vote in a positive way for the Conservative Party, to stand with us to help change New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Ruben?
Several things keep me awake at night, in particular the increasing degradation of our rivers and beaches and the increasing inequality in our society. So we need your Green Party vote to put 20 MPs into Parliament this time, and for Waimakariri we would address those concerns of mine. First of all, the clean rivers and beaches. 60% of New Zealand's rivers are unsafe for swimming, and we have measures to address that. And we'd protect our beaches from oil spill and call for a moratorium on fracking until it is proven safe, which is effectively never. As for the fairer society, starting with the kids, 1 in 4 of our kids in New Zealand grows up in poverty, first world country. This is not acceptable. We have practical solutions, ECE subsidies, free doctor's visits for all children to age 18 years, support hubs in decile 1 to 4 schools, implementing a minimum wage of $15 an hour immediately, supporting the Living Wage Initiative, reducing costs for students to go to university, and much more. Waimakariri deserves a smarter economy, a cleaner environment, a fairer society. And the Green Party have the policies to create that reality. Therefore, please vote Green for an electorate and country we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Matt?
Well, I'm out door knocking at the moment. I've door knocked over 7,000 doors, and I'm meeting voters such as yourselves and listening to you and understanding what the issues are for you in the Waimakariri. I'm also telling voters you need to get out there and vote, because it is going to be extremely close, and your vote does count and will count. And I'm very humbled by the support of senior ministers and the Prime Minister himself, who have come down and supported me in my campaign in the Waimakariri. Voters are telling me they're going to come out and vote for National this year because they want a strong and stable government. They want a government that's delivering a strong economy, one of the strongest in OECD countries. We've got the lowest unemployment rate, 2.8% in Canterbury at the moment. They're voting for National because we're delivering better education, better healthcare and safer communities for the last 35 years. Voters are going to vote for National because we're delivering a robust Canterbury earthquake recovery. Myself, I bring a fresh, energetic, new and young approach to the opportunities and challenges ahead in Waimakariri. I bring my real life experience with me of working for over 15 years in healthcare, at the front line of mental health services and in the management of healthcare services, where I've listened to people, supported them, helped them, represented them and advocated them. I went into healthcare to make a difference, and politics for me is a way of continuing to make that difference. I will be your strong voice inside the governing tent of a John Key national government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us on Election 2013. In wrapping up, I would like to thank the panel for joining me, Clayton, Benjamin, Ruben and Matt. Best of luck with your campaigning, and we look forward to seeing the results on the 20th of September. Next week we'll be looking at the Port Hills electorate, when we'll be joined by Eugenie Sage, Green Party List MP, Labour sitting MP Ruth Dyson and National Party Nukurako. See you next Tuesday, 7 p.m. on CTV. Thank you.